That's you. You're gonna get your head blown off one of these days. Lately, I'm gonna learn where it is, you know. Let me get rid of this thing. Oh, before I forget, howdy. Welcome to Happy Jack's Shack. I'm Happy Jack and this is my shack. That's why I call it Happy Jack Shack. So, it is getting cold out, and it's going to get colder. Yeah, I had to replace one of my rounds because I had to scare off the bears. As you can see, it's time for a movie ramble. Ramblin' with Happy Jack. Yes. Jeez. Excuse me. Gotta bring it down again, okay? All right. That's better. Cheers. Hot coffee. Gotta love it. It's empty. Happy Jack's Private Reserve. Oh, that smells like alfalfa. Fresh mood. Fill up. Peyote Wi-Fi, Nurse Lily, Dr. Seedsman, Bubblegum, Mazar, and Blue Shark. Sure. Happy Jack's Private Reserve. Okay, time to get modulated. Time to get motivated, you know? Oh yeah. Okay, so for the first, well, this will be the second ramble, And I'm going to be talking about time travel. Now, my original belief in time travel was it's impossible. I mean, you can't go, how can you travel to the future if it hasn't happened yet? I mean, even if you could travel through time, you go to the future, what future would you go to? And if you went there, you're changing it, so it would be a different future. And going into the past, I always thought that if you go into the past, by doing so in a physical sense, you're changing it. So no matter how careful you are, you're going to change the present by going into the past. And a perfect example of that is Back to the Future. When Marty went back and then he came back to the present, there were several changes that he had made. And if you've seen the movie, then you know. And I've got to tell you right now, there'll be plenty of spoiler alerts all the way through all of these. So if you haven't seen them and you don't want to ruin it, shut it off now. Okay, you haven't shut it off. So, when Marty first goes to the mall parking lot to meet up with Doc Brown, you look at the sign at the entrance and it says that it's Twin Pine Mall. When he came back, he went back there to warn Doc about the terrorist attack, and if you look, the title said Lone Pine Mall. So that was changed, and also his parents had changed. So he knew what it was before, and when he got back, he knew what the changes were. But nobody else would notice any changes because they're going through as if it had always been like that. Which was kind of like what they showed in the second movie when they went to the future and Biff stole the car and went into the past. Well, how did Biff know how to run that thing? But he gave himself the book that told of the scores of all of the games and everything, so that changed history. Everybody in that timeline, it was all natural. But to Doc Brown and Marty, it had all changed. And the one thing I did like about it was that it held up the idea that a time machine you would travel through time but not space. When he went back in time in the DeLorean, he left on a parking lot, and when he ended up, it was in the farmer's field. But it was the exact same spot, just a different time. So that's what I liked on that one. And most of them are like that. You know, even the original Time Machine, as he was going back through time, he could see the buildings deconstructing and how everything changed. Now, the next movie is one that got me to thinking about maybe an alternative. I mean, what if you had to go back in time for the present to be what it is? And if you didn't go back, then you'd cease to exist. That's the premise behind Time Rider, though they don't come right out and say that. Time Rider, the story of Lyle Swan. He's a motocross
off-road biker, and he somehow gets off of the track and he comes upon this scientific experiment in time travel. And he gets right next to it. They see him and they try to cancel the whole thing, but they're too late, of course. And he was reading the plaque on the machine when he went back in time with the machine. He didn't notice anything. Now, if he'd have been looking out or at the surroundings, most likely I would think he would see that plants had changed. Not the same plants that are growing in the present would have been there in the past. So he would have known, but he was paying attention to the plaque on the side of the time machine, and he didn't even notice that anything had changed. And so he goes, oh, okay, fine, it's an experiment. Takes his bike and takes off. But he is in the old West. And he meets up with this woman named Claire. And this is wild and tumble West, where men were men and women were just as bad at times. And I'm rambling, I know. Plus I'm a little high. That's some popcorn. So he goes back in time, and one thing leads to another, and they end up spending the night together, and next day she gets kidnapped by some bad guys that want his motorcycle. And so he gets with the good guys to go. He wants to rescue the girl. The sheriff wants to kill the bad guy for killing the sheriff's son. Yeah, they take their time. But as it ends up, he was wearing this necklace with a little medallion on it that was passed down generation after generation. And the story behind it was a keepsake that his great-great-great-great-grandmother had stolen from his great-great-great-grandfather in remembrance of a fantastic night they had spent together. And as finally the people with the time machine experiment had located where he was in that year, and they time traveled a helicopter back in time, and they located where he was, and this helicopter. Now imagine in the old West, the motorcycle was enough. I mean, it was a machine, but, and then all of a sudden here comes this helicopter. I mean, during World War II, you didn't have helicopters. They didn't come into being until around the Korean War, if memory serves. But, so he gets on the helicopter. He wants to have Claire come, and she won't. And they're telling him nobody else can come back. And there's that medallion hanging down, and she grabs it. Well, she knows he's from LA, so she goes back, doesn't find him and all like that, and she becomes the great matriarch of the Swan clan. So he gets back to the present, but the whole thing is, if he didn't go back in time, then he would not have been born. So he had to go back in time for his existence to be. And if he didn't, then there'd probably be a lot of other changes. I mean, have other effects. Oh, and by the way, the producer and the composer was none other than Michael Nesmith of the Monkees. So that was pretty good. Next movie, The Final Countdown. Yeah, this one is with Kirk Douglas, Martin Sheen, and James Ferrantino. This one, again, if you've seen it, then you know that if they didn't go back in time, then the guy, the old guy that had the company that built the aircraft carrier would not have existed and wouldn't have information, you know, on how to do certain things on it. So if they didn't go back in time, he would not have been left in the past and then been this company CEO. But they did get back. And another little interesting tidbit on that was the guy that designed up the kind of time tunnel storm effect was the same guy that did the main titles for most of the early Bond movies. And there was one Bond movie he couldn't do it because he was working on The Final Countdown. Yeah, true story. Okay, now another one. The Terminator. Now this one has a lot of what ifs. I mean, everybody's seen Terminator. Now, evidently the machines don't know anything about paradoxes. Or maybe they did and they were using it to their advantage. Now think about it. The machines send the Terminator into the past to find Sarah Connor and kill her before she can have a son named John, who in the future is the leader of the rebellion that wipes out the machines. So they figure if they go to the past, kill her, she won't have John, and they won't have to worry about it. But because they sent the Terminator, the rebellion somehow got in there and was able to send somebody back, Kyle. And Kyle went into the past to protect Sarah. And in so doing, you know, spend the night together and bingo, there's John. So if the machines hadn't sent the Terminator, there'd be no excuse for the rebels to send Kyle into the past. John would never have been conceived. So that didn't make too much sense. But then again, if you think about it, if they didn't send the Terminator into the past, then there'd been no Terminator for Sarah to terminate, and the electronics company that owned that got a hold of the processor, which wasn't workable. It was broken, it was disabled, but they got ideas from it. So if they hadn't sent the Terminator back, that company would not have gone the way that it did, and there'd be no machines. There's a lot of this here, though. Okay, honorable mentions. Now, like I said, most time travel movies depict it as you travel through time but not through space. You're always in the same exact place. Well, Millennium which is a really good movie, not only is in space, but they actually pull some items partway through a time portal so they can do what they're going to do. And I know there's a lot of people that haven't seen the movie. It's really good. It's Chris Christopherson and Cheryl Ladd are the two main stars in it. Cheryl Ladd is from the future, and they come into the past. And I won't spoil it for you. Check it out. But it does kind of shatter the, you can travel through time but not space. This one, yeah. And then another, not really a time travel, it would be more of a time viewing. And that is Nicolas Cage in Next, which is, you know, he can see 5 minutes into the future. I think it's 5 minutes. It's a very short time, but it's long enough that he can see moves over and over and over again until he finds the right one, then he can live that. It's kind of weird, but it's Nicolas Cage, Julianne Moore, and Jessica Biel. And it's really a good movie. He doesn't travel through time, he just views time. And I go, that would be cool. That might work, because you wouldn't have any effect on it. You're just viewing it. Okay, so that is the ramble. Am I having too much fun here or what? I think it's time to give me some more coffee. But before that, have a nice evening. I'm going to watch me some movies. See? See? Eat popcorn, watch movies, ignore the world. I'm good at that. Later days. Oh, one more thing. Before I forget, what the next ramble will be about. Again, some movies. This time, be dealing with the possibilities of life after death. What happens when you die? I mean, do you see a tunnel with a light at the end and you go to the light? Or nothing? You just, that's it. Lights out, and you're put in a grave. You rot back to, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and you go back to the ground. Or somewhere in between. I've picked out 3 movies. Ta-da! 3 movies, and that deal with life after death. Of course, one of the first ones gotta get. The first one is Beetlejuice. I mean, if you're going to talk about life after death, make it a comedy. The second one, of course, has to be Ghost. And last but not least, my favorite, Dead Like Me. And that one is a TV series you really need to see seasons 1, 2, and the feature-length movie. Okay, and that is what hopefully our next rant is going to be. Not, Jack, it's not rant, it's not It's a ramble. Okay, I'll be rambling on, so I think it's pizza time, huh? Till next time. Hope your journey down life's path is a pleasant one. Later days.